All right. All right. Getting it going. Stream should be up on YouTube, Facebook. We got to get our friends on Facebook on in here. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Welcome to the evening stream. How are we doing? How was your day? Comment in the chat. Comment in the chat how your day was. So happy to have you guys back here on Mercado Media. Comment where you're tuning in from, what city, what state, where in the world, where in the hell are you guys tuning in from? We're back live here, covering the war in Ukraine. What's happening? How we doing? We're back. We're back. Let me get the stream shared out on Facebook. Get the algorithms pumping. Good morning. What up from the United Kingdom? You had a great day off. Doing good. Texas is tuned in. How you doing? Naples, Florida. Hey, Leanne. You got the middle of Michigan. Way to keep us waiting. Kept you waiting, huh? Jackson, Michigan. Houston, Texas is tuned in. Wisconsin, Dallas. Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Viewer funded, viewer supported stream. I don't have any sponsors. The sponsor is you guys. Sponsored by the viewers. Thank you to everybody that is a member and a supporter. Facebook, everybody that becomes a supporter this month, they have a bonus going. So if you decide to become a supporter on Facebook, I'm going to be doing a giveaway on the Facebook page. YouTube channel, more to come on there. I'm going to be doing more video content for you guys. I got different platforms provide different features. Facebook, we do a lot of posting. I can do clips there. The algorithm is in favor of that, whereas YouTube, I'm limited to uploading like 3 times a day. That's it for an algorithm. I can upload as much as I want, really, but no one will see the video. So thank you to everybody that supports and is a member of the page and of the channel. That really keeps it going. West Michigan is tuned in. Great to see you, Matt. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Right now, the chat's just set to follow only and subscribe only, which are 2 free options to do. You don't have to pay to do that, but it just gives us an extra layer of protection against any trolls or anybody or bot accounts that have came in. There's lots of them on YouTube, more so on YouTube than there is Facebook now. Thank you, Christopher. Hey, Cheryl. Let me share this really quick. We are live. Bang. All right. So if you guys go to our description, you can read along. Ukraine Emergency Ministry says that search and recovery efforts began in the many destroyed apartment buildings in Borodyanka in the Kyiv region. U.S. sanctions Russia's largest state-owned bank, Sberbank, bans Americans from investing in Russian sanctioned individuals include Vladimir Putin's adult daughters, FM Sergei Lavrov's wife and daughter, and Russia's Security Council members. Authorities in the eastern Ukraine region of Luhansk urged civilians to evacuate while it's safe, warning that Russian bombardments could cut off escape routes. India condemned the killings of civilians in Bucha and called for an independent investigation, having earlier declined to explicitly criticize the invasion of Ukraine by its long partner Russia. Hey, how you doing from Chicago? Pope Francis condemns the massacre of Bucha, calls UN impotent. He called the NATO impotent as well. At his audience, the Pope called the cruelties against civilians in Ukraine horrendous. He added that the world is witnessing the impotence of the international organizations of the United Nations. Zelensky, Russia blocks humanitarian corridors to Mariupol. To hide the real picture, the Russian army and the political leadership, to all those who gave orders, carried them out. There are war criminals. Everyone must be held accountable, said President Vladimir Zelensky. Almost 4,900 people evacuated from the war zone on April 6. 3,686 people arrived in Zaporizhia from occupied Mariupol and Borodyanka. Additionally, over 1,200 people were evacuated from 4 cities in the Luhansk Oblast. Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you. UK plans to send armored vehicles to Ukraine, including protected patrol vehicles such as the Mastiff, or vehicles like the Jackal, which can be used for recon. British troops will be able to send a country neighboring to Ukraine. British troops would be sent to a country neighboring Ukraine to carry out training. U.S. believes it can identify Russian units that committed war crimes in Bucha. According to a U.S. official, identifying those involved is an extremely high priority for the U.S. intelligence community, CNN reported. It is already clear that more than one military unit or group of Russian troops are responsible for the massacres, but it is uncertain whether the U.S. would announce its findings publicly, and the decision to do so could be left up to Ukraine. So the first story we're going to get into, and that is the in relation to the title of the video. One last time, like the video or like the stream. Make sure you're following the page on Facebook. Spam the reactions. All right. So the Pope slams the impotence of the international organizations unable to stop Russia's invasion while holding up the Ukrainian flag. This is Pope Francis today. The Pope slammed international organizations for being unable to stop Russia's attack in Ukraine. He also denounced the recent massacre in Bucha while kissing a battered flag from the town. Thank you, Karina. Thank you for that. Thank you. And we got a Stars Party on Facebook. Thank you guys for the support. In the current war in Ukraine, we're witnessing the impotence of international organizations, he said in a front of a weekly audience at the Vatican, according to CBS News. The Pope pointed to international organizations that were put in place following World War II to instill, quote, a new era of peace, and said, quote, unfortunately, the old story of competition between the greater powers went on. Pope Francis also denounced the attacks in Bucha while kissing the Ukrainian flag, which was brought to him from the ruins of the town. Recent news from the war in Ukraine, instead of bringing relief and hope, brought new atrocities such as the massacre of Bucha, he said, according to CBS News. Thank you, Anna. He continued, there are victims whose innocent blood cries out to, let me read that again. He continued, they are victims whose innocent blood cries out up to heaven and implores, stop this war, let the weapons fall silent, stop sowing death and destruction. He then invited the group of Ukrainian children who are now refugees in Italy up to the stage. These children had to flee and come to strange land. This is one of the fruits of war, he said. Let's not forget them, and let's not forget the Ukrainian people. The Pope has yet to visit Ukraine since the war began on February 24th, but said on April 2nd that a visit to Eastern Europe, the Eastern European country, is on the table. Impotence of international organizations. Lots of thoughts and prayers from NATO. Here's the latest on the map. This is the latest from our war map. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Anna. Thank you to everybody. Here's the latest in the map. The Russian forces have been pushed to the east and to the south. Crimea's annexed, so it's going to be permanently red. Well, at least, as long as it's annexed. Thank you, Jan Marie. Thank you, Ken. So this is what the map looks like. The red is Russian-controlled occupied territory. As you can see, there's no more Russian-occupied territory to the northwest or to the northeast. All right. All right. We'll fast forward through again. We're going back to the policy of not showing bodies. We saw it plenty in Bucha, so we know what that looks like. If you haven't seen what that looks like, there are plenty of videos on the internet, or you can just go and rewatch a Mercado Media stream if you have not seen that, if you're looking for it. But there's still going to be some imagery, and I'm going to fast forward through any human bodies that are going to be shown on screen. So this is a video out of Trosenietsk in eastern Ukraine. So more video of aftermath of the Russian-occupied cities in Sumy, Trosenietsk. This is some of the area that they had occupied. Russian troops had it from Sumy to Kharkiv, but never took either city. As you can see now, the Russian forces are repelled from there. Good to see you are back, and congrats on your new home. Thank you so much for that, Laura. Thank you.
The Ukrainian...
Make sure we can hear it. Good over here. All right. So again, in general, any images of war are warning. This report contains very distressing images.
The Ukrainians blew the bridge to stop the westward advance of the Russian army here. And so Trostianets became the Russians' base, and then ensued 30 days of occupation and hell. At a factory at the edge of town, the body of a man's back. It is the car park.
So there's a body of a man with his hands tied
Behind the local council offices. And Anatoly has something to show us. The body of another.
Bodies of people. Okay, so bodies of people underneath the house. So there was body outside, bodies underneath the house.
Every day.
Let's try to go back. So I'm not trying to show it. If you're you can go and watch this stuff yourself now. The video we watched from President Zelensky in the UN was enough for me.
Every day. The mayor says Russian soldiers were billeted in this building here before the attack. Now we know that they were certainly in the vicinity because their uniforms still with the red armbands lying on the ground there. The tank is still in position, the barrel trained on the newly refurbished hospital.
Wow.
The mayor says just before the attack, a senior Russian officer went in, did a tour of the hospital and congratulated them on the place. And then the attack began. He says around 30 tank shells fired into the building, and he is categoric. There was no military presence in the hospital whatsoever.
All right. So let's just do that last part again. Well, let's do the beginning part and then the last part. So we don't need to look at the middle part. It shows a dead man and then a dead human beings underneath that building. So just the beginning of the report and the end.
The Ukrainians blew the bridge to stop the westward advance of the Russian army here. And so Trostianets became the Russians' base, and then ensued 30 days of occupation and hell.
All right, 30 days. There are civilians killed, civilians massacred.
The mayor says Russian soldiers were billeted in this building here before the attack. Now we know that they were certainly in the vicinity because their uniforms still with the red armbands lying on the ground there. The tank is still in position, the barrel trained on the newly refurbished hospital. The mayor says just before the attack, a senior Russian officer went in, did a tour of the hospital and congratulated them on the place. And then the attack began. He says around 30 tank shells fired into the building, and he is categoric. There was no military presence in the hospital whatsoever.
Wow. Congratulated him on the hospital and then fired on it. What is this here? Russian World War II veterans. Mr. Putin, stop this terrifying, needless massacre. Is this...
Мне исполнилось 90.
No, there isn't any subtitles. The Council of Churches include representatives of more than 90% of all religious organizations in Ukraine, including the Orthodox, Greek, and Roman Catholic, Protestant, and Evangelical churches, Jews, and Muslims. What does that mean? All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting used to Twitter still. That was the second part of the tweet. First part of the tweet. Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations called on the world to recognize the genocide of the Ukrainian people during the Russian invasion of 2022 to provide Ukraine with all the necessary weapons to defeat Russia. The Council of Churches includes representatives of more than 90% of all the religious organizations in Ukraine, including the Orthodox, Greek, and Roman Catholic, Protestant, and Evangelical churches, Jews, and Muslims. Oh, we got a new one. Video of a Russian cruise missile strike at an oil facility near Odessa. So now, I mean, we're not getting videos as fast as we used to. Oil facility on April 3rd. It's 3 days ago, though. So 3 days ago. We're just getting video coming out now. Or it's allowed to be posted now. Three days ago. It started here.
Еще один взрыв. Ох, нихуя. Нихуя. Нихуя себе. Ёбаные гондоны. Кацапы, пидорасы, чуть хату мне не завалили. Еще один взрыв. Охуеть, как ебать.
One more time.
Еще один взрыв. Ох, нихуя. Нихуя. Нихуя себе. Ёбаные гондоны. Кацапы, пидорасы, чуть хату мне не завалили. Еще один взрыв. Охуеть, как ебать.
So that's in Odessa. That was 3 days,
Еще один
3 days
взрыв.
ago in Odessa. Odessa's down here. Hasn't been any threats in any serious threats in Odessa or to Odessa. That's to the south, straight directly south in the port city. But here's as much as Russia has now. Russian forces have the eastern region of the country, the southeastern region, and the southern region, including Crimea. Everybody check in if you guys haven't. Welcome to the stream. Like the video if you're just entering. Make sure you share the stream on Facebook if you could, please. Thank you. The Russians are covering their tracks in Mariupol. Mobile crematoria helps. Reuters, FBI hijacks Russian cyber network. According to U.S. officials on April 6th, the Federal Bureau of Investigation hijacked thousands of routers and firewalls from the Russian military hackers. This was reportedly a preemptive move to stop the creation of the botnet, a network of computers infected with malicious software and used to barrage other servers with traffic. Hey, how you doing all night? Welcome, welcome. We're back. If you guys have missed us in the last week or so. Air raid sirens in Dnipro. That was 45 minutes ago. Geo confirm. What is this from? Bridge towards Trostinetsk. Oh, it was confirming the video. It was the geolocated video. Here, let's look at it ourselves. The bridge, and then here's the square. Okay, so this is where the video is. Yeah, it's some interesting infrastructure in Eastern Europe, don't they?
Temporary military bridge. The Russian ensued occupation of Russians' base, and then ensued 30 days of occupation and hell.
So it says that is up here now. Wow, so this is where the tank is sitting then in the video. The UK has sanctioned Putin's 2 daughters, correct. So this is where the tank is sitting in the video. Wow. And then Ukraine blew
Russian
up
army here.
Ukraine blew up the bridge themselves to prevent the Russian advance. Hello, everyone. What's that? Shenanigans.
And so Trostianets became the Russians' base, and then ensued 30 days of occupation and hell.
There's the blue rooftop right there. Yep. That's wild. It doesn't look like this anymore. Look how nice it is. Grass is cut. It's like a little town square. Wow. No, they're also geolocating where he's standing too. So the mayor says Russian soldiers were billeted, so he's looking at that building. That building's here. Can we get to it? The hospital area. That's the house that he's looking at. Oh, okay, hold on. Now we're going further away from the house. Oh, this is it right here. That's the house. At the end.
Before in this phase of civil execution, soldiers. The mayor says Russian soldiers were billeted in this building here before the attack. Now we know that they were.
Then he walks here. So yeah, this is the house that he's walking in front of in the video. This isn't Trostianets. This is how you know that their videos aren't fake, or that they're not in a location that they say they're not.
Certainly in the vicinity, because their uniforms still with the red armbands.
And then that tank would be sitting like in there. hard to even tell. It doesn't even look this. The area around it doesn't even look the same from how war torn it is.
On the ground there, the tank is still in position. The barrel trained on the newly refurbished hospital.
Can we see the hospital from here? Oops. This is from 2017. Is this the hospital? This is the only building over here. This picture is from 2018, so I don't see any other images. It's the only building over here. Good evening, Cammy. Good evening, everybody. Oh, there it is. That's there it is. That's the hospital. And the tank was firing at it from over here. You could obviously the trees aren't here. There's no trees there's no trees.
The mayor says
There's no leaves on the trees.
just before the attack, a senior Russian officer went in, did a tour of the hospital and congratulated them on the place. And then the attack began.
And that's sick. He congratulated he did a tour of the hospital, congratulated him, and then attacked it. Russian tactics. Then we can look at the bridge towards Trosinets. Virginia, USA. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Which way are they going across it? I bet you it doesn't even look the same. How do they get across this? Oh, they're driving across a makeshift bridge. Hold on. They're over here. Driving across a makeshift bridge. Right here.
Temporary military bridge. The Ukrainians blew the bridge to stop the westward advance of the Russian army here.
Wow. This is the bridge. Pictures from 2015. The bridge. All right. So some geo-confirmed locations. Where's this? Behind the local council offices. What part of the video is that? What's the local council offices part of the video? Oh, right here. My bad. Right here.
Local council offices.
Car Park Local Town Council. Can you even see it from there? What image did they use? That one. So that's in here. The video's coming from the second or third floor. Probably the second floor. We're out in the street. We're out in the street here, and we're looking into the parking lot. So this storage unit here, whatever this is this on the right.
It is the car park behind the local council offices.
We need to add Channel 4 News to the thing, it looks like. All right. How's everybody doing in the chat this evening? Video of Ukrainian Stugna P ATGM team targeting Russian vehicles. Part of the footage was previously released. So you might have seen a part of this clip already.
Там дві коробочки, подивися.
Як ти ставишся до ідеї бать беху?
Ніяк.
Галя балувана.
ППО, бляха-муха, пальне, танки, Буратіно. А це, бля, мотлах, нахуй він нам срався. Буратіно! Внимание к бою!
Буратіно йде. Хлопці, сокотіться від труби.
Вистріл! Кто трогает, сука? Пи***сы, блядь!
Заміна ракети.
Ну ты, сука!
Не кричи. Нова ракета є, походу.
Yes!
Юра, забирай, братан!
All right, one more time.
Там дві коробочки, подивися.
Як ти ставишся до
This is a Stugna. This is let me see. Stugna P ATGM.
бать беху?
Ніяк.
Галя балувана.
ППО, бляха-муха, пальне, танки, Буратіно. А це, бля, мотлах, нахуй він нам срався. Буратіно! Внимание к бою!
Буратіно йде. Хлопці, сокотіться від труби.
Вистріл!
Yeah, we found the secret video of Hunter Biden's laptop. We found it. This is the TikTok. It's been solved. Here it is. This is the video. Kidding. Don't take that serious, please.
Кто трогает, сука? Пидасы, блядь!
Заміна ракети.
Ну ты, сука!
Не кричи.
Нова ракета есть, походу.
There's a few shots. They were able to get a few shots off on the convoy. Look at how bunched up. Look at it. They're trying to hurry.
Юра, забрали, братан!
And then they're engaging some more there at the end. Look at the second part. The second half. They hit it a few times.
Нова ракета есть, походу.
Look at it. You can kind of see it in the video. You can kind of see it in the computer. In the video, the rocket traveling. To use this, does he have to keep this? I wonder if because I've obviously never operated this thing. It is laser guided. Do you need to keep that on the tank? You got to keep this pointed at it, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe you need to keep this. You know, he's using like a joystick or whatever, and he needs to follow this tank because that's where the rocket's going. So it's not like that's he's actually has to kind of guide the missile. Yeah, all right, I'm right. He's following it with his hand or whatever, the joystick, to keep it on the target. He's got it. Oh, he's got it like center mass on the thing.
Yeah!
Wow. It takes a steady hand. The Putin regime terrorists had attempted at digging trenches and building fortifications at a children's playground in Borodyanka in the Kyiv region.
Це Бородянський дитячий садочок після русні. Це Бородянський дитячий садочок після русні.
Wow. Bro.
Це Бородянський дитячий садочок
Look at the trenches they had dug.
після русні.
They had a whole trench system in there. A whole trench system in this playground. What the hell? They really were dug in around Kyiv. Is this in English? No. A video from an American correspondent in Borodyanka. This was 3 hours ago from James Longman, ABC News foreign correspondent. Borodyanka. Here it is on the map. Let's pull it up on the map quick so you guys see where it's at. Make sure you guys like the video, follow the page, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Welcome to Mercado Media Productions. Mercado Media for short. Borodyanka here. Here's Kyiv. It's up here. To the northwest.
We've made it to the town of Borodyanka, which is northwest
Borodyanka, that one too.
of Bucha, and somehow, I didn't know it was possible, but the devastation is even worse. I mean, look at that, that's an apartment building, just sort of chopped in half. The mayor says when this invasion began, Russia actually sent its jets over this town, that they bombed it from the sky, knowing full well that there were civilians here. And the great fear is that as Ukraine retakes more and more land on the way up towards the Russian border, that they'll discover more atrocities, possibly even worse than the ones we've already seen, because Russians were here for that much longer. The other thing about this town is that all you really hear is the sound of crows. There are very few people, because there's nothing for them to come back to. There's nothing really for people to have survived here.
So all the Western journalists had to. I mean, there were some in Kyiv still. There's some that remained, like John Sweeney and a few others, but a lot of them were in Lviv. So now that it's clear, now that the Russian forces are expelled from the northwest into the northeast regions, journalists and Ukrainian forces, including the president, Vladimir Zelensky, he got to Bucha a couple days ago, but they're starting to get images and video and get to these towns up in here to help, to get some humanitarian aid, because the Russia had all of this territory all the way up to Chernobyl occupied. And now they don't. Right? So now they're over here. I mean, they have been over here, but they're getting pushed even further to the east. So as they've been there, a lot of the Western journalists have been in Lviv. I wonder if we'll see them set up in Kyiv again.
We've made it to the town of Borodyanka, which is northwest of Bucha, and somehow, I didn't know it was possible, but the devastation is even worse. I mean, look at that, that's an apartment building, just sort of chopped in half. The mayor says when this invasion began, Russia actually sent its jets over this town, that they bombed it from the sky, knowing full well that there were civilians here. And the great fear is that as Ukraine retakes more and more land on the way up towards the Russian border, that they'll discover more atrocities, possibly even worse than the ones we've already seen, because Russians were here for that much longer. The other thing about this town is that all you really hear is the sound of crows. There are very few people, because there's nothing for them to come back to. There's nothing really for people to have survived here. We've made it.
All right. Turkey reopening the embassy in Kyiv. Around 20% of urban streets have been cleaned from debris already, just over a week after the city was liberated from Russian occupants. Hundreds of people volunteered to help. %20 of Irpin streets. So Irpin is right next to Bucha. Oops, too far. Irpin is right next to Bucha. There's Irpin. Clip: Northern Saltovka, a residential area of Kharkiv, aftermath of the Russian invasion. So this is Northern Saltovka. Again, aftermath videos, because Russia's had that area occupied and we haven't had any video out of there. We didn't know what's been going on. We literally, who was here? I'd say the first it had to be the second night, third night. The very first days of the war all blend for me, because we were just going for like 24 hours nonstop. But we watched the Russian soldiers take out cameras, the CCTV cameras. We watched it live. We were sitting here hanging out and watching the Russians just enter the country. We were watching it for hours. That's the other thing why I just cannot stand the propaganda, the people that are falling for the propaganda, when me and so many of you guys sat here for hours and hours and literally watched the Russian soldiers enter the country and in areas of the country that aren't anywhere near the Azov battalion in Mariupol. It's just clowning. We literally watched them with our own eyes. So here's Saltivka. Here's the aftermath. Wow. Remember, Kharkiv is one of the most war-torn cities. There hadn't been too many battles there. More so artillery shellings and genocide. A lot of there's been genocide and artillery shellings in Mariupol too, but a lot of the ground combat. There's a lot of ground combat and mechanized infantry combat and tank battles in Mariupol. There was a lot of helicopter battles and ground and tank battles in Bucha and even further to the northwest. So, although there wasn't a lot of reports of fighting inside of Kharkiv like there is in Mariupol, lots of civilian shellings and apartment complexes, and like Kharkiv just got hit damn near every night. Mariupol's worse. Mariupol's worse than this, unfortunately. Yeah, a lot of Ukraine cities are beautiful. What's this? This is in Borodyanka. Borodyanka. We saw this is where that roundabout is. To the northwest of Kyiv. This is where that reporter was standing. So you guys know that report here. Here we can do that. So that's that apartment that's in half. What was his name? That CBS reporter that was on the ground.
We've made it to the town of Borodyanka, which is northwest of Bucha, and somehow, I didn't know it was possible, but the devastation is even worse. I mean, look at that, that's an apartment building.
That's that same apartment building that this is in Borodyanka. And then that's the roundabout. I want to say that part of this... Yeah, this is too far away from it. That part of the street that they're on, there is no view of it. Unless it goes... Unless we can try one way. Hold on. Whoa. And also these pictures in this one are from 2015, so it's tough. These are 2015 photos, so all this looks different in here now. There wasn't any apartments. But that's where the CBS reporter's standing, likely even in this video. He's probably down there right here in this group. It's near Kyiv. Borodyanka is in the Kyiv Oblast. So it's here. There's Kyiv. That's the capital city. The one thing that we need to keep in mind going forward too is, although the Russian forces have been expelled away from Kyiv, they're falling right into where they're propagandizing the war. All the propaganda and the fan in the flames is in Mariupol, and the fighting down here. Makes me wonder why Russia has all this. I wonder if they haven't. I don't know. Russia hasn't taken the city, and I'm wondering if it's a strategic move not to just keep like a war zone going here, so they can continue the propaganda bolstering in this region, because they failed it. They tried it. They tried to take the capital of Kyiv, and now they're pushed back right into the region in which all the propaganda for the reasoning behind the war and Putin's justification for invasion. They're banking on people not knowing geography and not knowing how far away all these cities are and towns from that region. They're not even close. So Borodyanka is up here again. Nowhere near the Putin's reasonings for wanting to invade the country at all. There is no justification. I need to reiterate that. There is no. But for those that are at this point over 40 days in that are somehow believe that any of this is justified for Russia's cause. Okay, someone destroying their Chanel purse okay. Video in Berlin today. Before Ukrainian cities like Mariupol razed and their citizens killed, the people of Berlin call for an energy embargo against Russia. This is in Berlin. Sorry, that's loud. Wow. That's in Berlin. Here it is. A friend sent me messages from Kiev. That's in. Where are we? That's from February 12th. A rally in Berlin was held under the slogan "Enough Promise, Start Acting." So here's more from the rally in Berlin. More from the rally in Berlin. In Mariupol, as a result of the bombing of a children's hospital by Russian aircraft, almost 50 people were burned alive. This was announced by the city mayor, Vladimir Putin. So there's a picture of Mariupol. This is Pope Francis, again, the impotence, he called it. Stop this war, let the weapons shut up, stop sowing the death and destruction, Pope Francis reported, and held up a Ukrainian flag from the city of Bucha. This is a clip, graveyard of civilian victims in Chernihiv. So that's in Chernihiv. That's to the northeast of Kyiv. Oh, here's more from Borodyanka. Let's go into it. Here's the full video so I can show you guys the roundabout. Oops. This is from Borodyanka. The full video. There's the monument and the roundabout. Borodyanka. The other thing too that's coming up is the NATO. We got it. Let's look it up quick. NATO meeting. NATO foreign ministers to address. That was on that already happened. Where is their? They have events coming up today. Let me see. How do I find that live stream? So it hasn't started yet at 7:20. So these are the events that are happening today. The opening remarks of NATO Security General at NAC Foreign Ministers session with partners. So there's a 9:30 session and a 1 p.m. session. They're 7 hours ahead, so we might get a little bit of the doorstep by the Secretary General and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. So we might get a little bit of this at the end of the stream here. This will be live. NATO conference, live streaming. If you guys want to tune into this stuff, it's on the NATO website. But we'll be definitely doing a recap or watching it on the 9 a.m. stream. So, NATO meeting tomorrow. It started today, technically, but it was just a photo opportunity, really. Clip, Russia's Black Fleet launched more Onyx anti-ship missiles at ground targets in Ukraine from Bastion coastal defense systems. If you guys are interested in seeing these clips or following us, follow us on Twitter. MMP LLC News. Drop a follow. Mercado Media on Twitter. Mariupol is fighting back as hard as it can. Mykolaiv mayor says that Putin regime terrorists had carried out missile strikes on the city's central railway station, completely destroying it in Mykolaiv. So there's fighting going around. So it looks like there's strikes towards the Mykolaiv, likely out of Kherson. So that's over here. The Mariupol gained more territory, it looks like. They're fighting back as hard as it can. So here, this is based off of British intelligence. This is where the units are. The 68th GTR is here. 163rd, 163rd. Interesting, GTR. Kadriovites. That's the Kadyrov, the TikTok army. So this is the TikTok unit. You got the 810th Naval Infantry unit. That's the 810th. That's Russian. Question mark MRR. You got the 102nd MRR. All right, and then that's for Russian forces. And then inside of the Ukraine, you got the 36th Marine Battalion. Ukraine, that's the Ukraine military. Then you got the Azov Regiment, the highly scrutinized and that unit. And then you got 56th Motorized Battalion, the 56th Motorized Brigade. That's Ukrainian Army. And then the 12th National Guard. So you got more units in this area than just the Azov Battalion. The Azov Regiment. We aren't even the only ones in Mariupol. The Kadyrov unit. We'll get to it. They post TikToks. That's the Chechens, the Chechen military. The Kadyrov the warlord Kadyriovites. They even call them that in the British intelligence. Video proof that Russian command did order its soldiers to dig fortifications near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in March of 2022. Reports from Ukrainian intelligence stated that 70-plus Russian soldiers were hospitalized with radiation sickness in Belarus. Thank you for that, Donald. So radiation, they dug these fortifications, and then got a lot of Russian soldiers got radiation sickness or died from the radiation. Near Chernobyl. Pashinyan and Aliyev instructed their foreign ministries to begin preparations for peace talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Peace talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We saw the Stugna P team. Let's go to our profile because we retweeted the earlier videos. How's everybody doing in the feed tonight? We have coverage at 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. Central Time. Information is getting tight coming out. Russian forces in the Kharkiv Oblast, so they haven't completely been expelled out of Kharkiv. They're to the east of it still. They're to the eastern region of Kharkiv. They're not to the western or to the northwestern. Or to the north. They're north of Kharkiv, but they've been expelled to the west. The area they had to Sumy, they've been expelled from there. So there's still Russian forces to the north and to the east. All right. A video group of T-80 tanks to the forefront near Severodonetsk. I know, right? Some cheap reactive armor, bro. Near the Severodonetsk Donbass. So let's look and see where that is. Severodonetsk. North of the Donbass region, to the northwest of Luhansk. So rolling through here, Severodonetsk. Severodonetsk. The clip: Russian occupiers firing at a residential area of the same region, and we also had it was also geolocated, and we found it. I wish I had retweeted that. Russian occupiers fired at the residential areas of Severodonetsk. They just got out of the street just in time. All right, I'm trying to catch up to. Shout out to our Discord server, our clip squad. Kyiv, a town cut off from the outside world until yesterday. A temporary bridge enabled access. What's this video now?
Oh, hey guys.
Oh, what's that? So we had, this was recommended in our Discord server. Russia regrouping in Ukraine is worse than you think. Oh, I haven't seen this. I just pulled it up out of the Discord server. I wonder if he's going to talk about, we'll just see. Let's find out. So the shout out to our Discord server for finding this video. Task and purpose. Full credit. Russia regrouping in Ukraine is worse than you think. Let's see what they have to say.
I'm not running away. I know it looks like I'm retreating, but this is all part of the plan. You see, Russia fooled us all into thinking that they wanted to capture the Ukrainian capital, when apparently it was all just a clever distraction, a ruse, to bait the Ukrainian army away from the real attack that was happening in the east.
On March 28th, when the Russians were shelling all of the cities around Kiev, it turns out that wasn't an attempt to lay the groundwork for a future assault. It was Russian rearguard action laying down covering fire so that their troops could retreat in the night. Unless you believe the official word from the Russians, which is that they didn't want any of that land anyway.
Everyone knows purposely losing 20% of your combat power is page 1 of Sun Tzu's Art of War, the average infantryman's edition.
It's okay to be pro-Russian and still accept that it's not going well right now for them. The Russian plan is going brilliantly. Russia plays chess, West plays checkers.
That's right, the Russians are apparently using the same ancient tactic that I always use when I get myself into a fight, where I deliberately punch myself square in the to confuse and disorient the enemy. Got him. So this might look like they're retreating all the way back to Belarus to my untrained eye, but I'm not a military intellectual expert like Russian First Deputy of the General Staff, Sergei Lavrov, who assured us that the invasion is still going according to plan. The main objective of the first stage of the operation has generally been accomplished, which makes it possible to focus our core efforts on achieving the main goal, the liberation of Donbass.
General, excuse me, sir. I distinctly remember you telling me yesterday that we would capture the capital of Kiev by the end of the month. Maybe in the interest of truth,
he's got his pinks on. What the hell?
Transparency and honesty, we should admit we were wrong and failed to capture the capital.
Военной безопасности Российской Федерации.
While it's entertaining to make fun of Russia's attempt to save face from losing Kiev, what they're saying is actually kind of true, and that's what we're going to examine in this episode.
Yeah, next you're going to tell me that a pierogi is just a ravioli without marinara sauce.
Interesting. All right. Task and purpose.
Take a look at how these Russian ground forces near the east of Kiev, who are in the middle of running away, retreating, tactically withdrawing by moving in reverse assault. We see one well-placed Ukrainian T-64 BV tank is able to destroy...
We watched this video. We watched this and broke it down. They ambushed them on their way out.
Destroy a Russian BTR-82A as their unit tries to retreat. The Ukrainian tank sets up with its flank protected by a building and it has a clear shot at the street. We see that it misses with its first shot, but it's able to score a hit on one of the next Russian BTRs. The BTR then returns fire, but they can't get their eyes on the location of the Ukrainian tank that's ambushing them. So they try to drive past the kill zone to clear that area while dismounting their infantrymen in the rear. The Russian BTR starts to open fire with their 30mm autocannon. This is suppressing fire in the general direction that they think they're being shot at from, but they guess incorrectly, they're a little bit far off to the right, and the fire is ineffective. Keep in mind, these are the same Russian forces that have been fighting for an entire month now. My understanding is that these are the same troops that drove from Sumy all the way to Kiev, about 500 kilometers from where they first entered the country. They must be battered and exhausted by this point. The Ukrainians aren't going to let them hobble away scot-free because they know there is a chance that these forces are going to leave the area of Kiev and then they're going to be redeployed to the fight in the Donbass region. Next, we see a Russian infantryman position themselves right here because they happen to see the cloud of smoke coming from the direction where the Ukrainian tank is located. So he fires a shoulder-fired anti-tank missile system at it, but he either mistakenly thinks the fire is coming from inside the barn or he misses the tank and accidentally hits the barn. Then the Ukrainians drop accurate artillery fire onto the column of enemy vehicles.
Damn.
Artillery in the past was notoriously difficult to coordinate because troops had to play telephone, this game of telephone between soldiers who were located on the ground called forward observers, and then the blind artillery units firing miles away. With drones, artillery now has eyes of their own. That's why it's more effective in this war.
Literally.
What we're witnessing with Russia's retreat is absolutely historic.
Around the same exact time and place that this attack happened, on the live map, the Ukrainians uploaded video evidence of the aftermath of the attack. The Russians were retreating so hastily and so disorganized.
Hold on. What account was that? We need to follow that account. ARSJON underscore. Hold on. I shown. XUDOSI. Wow. Well, I definitely spelled that wrong.
Of the attack.
No, go back. ARSLON. Okay. There we go. You just made the list. All right, back to the video.
On the live map, the Ukrainians uploaded video evidence of the aftermath of the attack. The Russians were retreating so hastily and so disorganized that they just left some of their vehicles behind. I mean, to be fair, mistakes happen. I actually did something very similar to this when I first got my car back in 2007. I rammed into the side of a Petco off the 495 expressway.
This is the consequence of what happens when a salient attack goes wrong. A salient is a classic military strategy that all West Point officer types talk about. It's when you push fast and deep into enemy territory in a narrow assault. It leaves you wide open to attack on 3 separate sides, but the goal in a salient is to not worry about that so much and just keep pushing until you hopefully reach behind the enemy and completely destroy their headquarters of their operations. It's the military equivalent of going to Atlantic City on a Tuesday afternoon and casually putting everything you have on red. If your salient tactic goes wrong, like it did here, this is what happens. Your base of assault gets cut off, leaving you without supplies, and that's how you become a pocket of troops. The Ukrainians now have officially and decisively won the Battle of Kiev. I was skeptical that Russian forces would retreat. I believe Putin would sooner sacrifice every soldier on the Kiev front before giving up. Boy, was I wrong. Now experts are divided on whether or not Putin is really giving up on Kyiv altogether. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said,
Actually, let's do this. Let's do a poll. Now that we know that, now that it's just known that the Battle of Kyiv has been won by Ukraine to this point, do you guys feel that Vladimir Putin's done with Kyiv right now? I'm just going to put that in the chat as a poll. Give me a second. I'll play the video, but I'm going to put that in the poll on Facebook and YouTube.
In order to protect any territory it seizes in the east, we expect that Russia could potentially extend its force projection and presence even deeper into Ukraine beyond Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. Analysts believe there will be a major assault in the east now that's going to determine if Kiev remains safe or not in the coming months. According to the Institute of the Study of War, the Russian forces appear to be regrouping and redeploying more forces near Kharkiv, which is Ukraine's second largest city. The city of Belgorod, inside of Russia, is where all of these troops are ultimately headed to. The forces that are retreating from Kiev and Kharkiv are headed there. A large concentration of units are refitting here and preparing to either move home or to be redeployed and integrated into the fighting on the Eastern Front. We'll have to see what Russia chooses to do. Now, I couldn't verify if these forces were moving towards Kharkiv or away from them, but the main thing I want to address here is that metal cage on top of the T-72 tank.
So gross. Look at that thing. Look at that. It's like kind of dangling on it. We saw this clip earlier in the day.
We need to talk about this thing for a second because it's everywhere in their army. The design of this rebar cage demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of how the Ukrainian anti-tank missile systems actually work. If that cage is meant to fool an incoming NLAW or Javelin missile system into exploding too high above the tank, then I think it's worthless. The way the NLAW works, for instance, is to use a magnetic and optical sensor to detect the shape of an enemy tank, and it purposely flies 1 meter above the shape of the tank. It doesn't fly 1 meter above the highest part of the tank. So the missile knows that a T-72 is 2.23 meters high. This tank is 7 feet 4 inches off the ground. A $40,000 or $200,000 rocket science computer isn't going to be fooled by a $2.50 metal rebar cage welded together.
So people have started calling these cope cages, as in you have to cope with the fact that your tank can't stop incoming missiles.
This guy's got a... This guy, dude. This is a good channel. Know your meme, cope cages. That's so good. Oh, man.
Isn't going to be fooled by a $2.50 metal rebar cage welded together.
So people have started calling these cope cages, as in you have to cope with the fact that your tank can't stop incoming missiles. This is my favorite set of memes to come out of the war so far. This is a secret version 2.0 leaked look.
Leaked cope cage. The cope cage. Cope cage version 2. The pros, lighter, morale boost. You can bounce on it. Cons, it still doesn't work. I'm blocking this. Hold on. You guys got to see this for yourself. Yeah, there. Look at it. The pros are it's lighter. No, it's a morale boost because you can bounce on it. And then the cons are it still doesn't work. That's unfortunate. I think the cons outweigh the pros.
The pros are that it's lighter, there's a morale boost because you jump on top. The cons are that it still doesn't work. Looks like the cope cage doesn't protect Russian tanks against driving off bridges.
The cope cage, dude. We gotta keep that one. From here on out, the cope cage. It's so good.
Copium cage, because you're inhaling copious amounts of copium. Here we have a very different kind of cage. You guys ever get in a cage? I've spent 8-10 hours just binge watching the worst Nicolas Cage movies. It's amazing. Anyway.
It does probably have the benefit of false sense of security, which can be helpful, and I'm not even being sarcastic about that. That can actually be helpful. Roughly 2/3 of the 36th combined Russian army has successfully left Ukraine at this point, with the other third left behind still around Kiev, either by accident or on purpose, attempting to find a way out now. So the Russians have been dropping landmines in their wake, trying to slow down Ukraine and prevent them from shooting them in the back.
Look at this. This is how they were clearing mines. Obviously, it's a pressure. You can't step on this. It's made for their anti-tank mines. So I don't know. This is kind of ballsy to me, though. I don't want to get anywhere near those things. But apparently, you just kind of kicking them from the side and moving them out of the way is fine. But they're definitely pressure plate mines. You can see the top of them. If a vehicle drove over that, boom. But apparently you can kick them.
This video pretty much sums up my entire tour in Iraq. If you're playing the drinking game where you take a shot every time I mention I went to Iraq, knock back one of those hua shots.
There is a Russian base near Kharkiv called Belgorod that you might be familiar with, because it's where the bizarre Ukrainian helicopter attack happened last week. Now, we're not exactly sure what happened there yet, but the Russians claim that 2 Mi-24 attack helicopters from Ukraine attacked them on their home turf in their own country by striking a petrol depot. The Ukrainian officials claim that they were not responsible for the attack. There are several different theories here. It could be that the Ukrainian government isn't entirely in full control of every single unit, so the Ukrainian military took the initiative and decided to attack into Russian territory without full approval. It could be a false flag operation by Russia, but I'm always skeptical of those claims, especially if people die. The chances of finding troops who are willing to attack their own people, I think, is extraordinarily low. The fact that no people were injured in this attack, and it was only a petro depot that was damaged, does make me think that it's slightly more possible that it could be a false flag operation, although it doesn't exactly make Russia look good if they were to do this to themselves. It's more like it would make them look incompetent for not being able to stop a low-flying helicopter attack.
But their military is incompetent, though. They have nothing. They don't even know how to operate. So I was feeling the same way about. What do you guys think about the Belgrade attack? That was a few days ago. Belgrade's in Russia. Skirt. There's Belgrade. No, nobody was killed. There's Kharkiv. Right, there's the border.
It's funny to joke about their absurd claims to save face, but there is some truth to what Moscow is saying. That's the reason why we're seeing pro-Russian sources doubling down on being wrong and actually believing that the assault on the capital was all a distraction and that the retreat was planned. Because the truth is, there are 3 main military objectives for Russia, and all of them are actually in the east of the country. First, they really need to control the flow of water to Crimea. Back in my day, we fought wars over the control of oil like adults. Now we're fighting for water? Wait, never mind. The second objective for Russia in the east is the Yakutsk gas field, which was discovered in 2010.
He's got to be from Philly. He's saying water. He's saying water. Some people from Philly say it.
And it has about 42 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves. That could threaten Russia's oil dominance in the region. Could have a huge negative effect on their economy. The third objective is to control access to all the port cities in Ukraine that have access to the Black Sea. So sometimes I think maybe sometimes wars are about envy. Maybe Russia envies all of these good things that Ukraine has, and they see them having all of these successes right next door, and they're not going to allow that to happen. If they can achieve those goals, if Russia can achieve capturing those 3 goals, they will have landlocked and absolutely wrecked Ukraine's entire economy. So when they say that the main war is in the east, they're actually on some level telling the truth. The problem for Russia, though, is that without having captured Kiev, their chances of holding on to those objectives is greatly reduced now. This is because the Ukrainians will now be able to have a steady flow of NATO weapons and supplies throughout the region, including in the east. They'll also be able to reinforce those units in the east.
But they've already been... They're gonna propagandize this even worse now. It's almost like I feel that this is being played into, because for the last 8 years they've been propagandizing this scenario here as if it's been happening, but now that they're on a full-scale invasion, they're falling back into it, and I bet you they're just gonna reiterate the propaganda for the reason that they invaded was that the Luhansk and Donetsk wanted their independence, and I wonder if they're going to try to do that with these other cities in here. That all of a sudden Kherson wants independence. They're going to hold a phony election there, like they did in Crimea, or phony elections, and then in Melitopol and in Borodyanka. They don't have Mariupol yet. They don't have Mariupol, but just land grabs. And then turn all the cities that they have occupied into puppet governments, so then they actually control this region. And then now they have an even bigger, because they've been propagandizing this region for 8 years. They've been propagandizing this region for 8 years. Now look at how much room they have now. Now they have Crimea. Now they have all this area to do the same exact thing that they've been doing for 8 years, only with even more territory now. And now you're going to have Ukraine. Now since it's a full-scale invasion, now you don't have just like the Azov battalion down here. Now you have the whole Ukrainian military down here with NATO weapons, which is kind of falling almost into Putin's his self-prophecy. He's going to hammer this region with propaganda like he did with the Donbass and Luhansk and Donetsk. And say, look at NATO's right on that. NATO's right there. NATO's right on the border. NATO's right on your border now, just like we said they would be. Right?
So let's take a look at some of Russia's goals outside of Kiev.
So I want to take a minute here to go into some greater detail on these 3 main objectives and why they're important to Russia.
After they annexed Crimea in 2014, the Ukrainian government responded by damming up the Dnieper River on their side of the border. This was done at the canal located here near Kherson. The dam prevented 85% of water from reaching Crimea, causing a devastating drought that wrecked the agriculture industry for the past 8 years in Crimea. Now, Ukraine claims that they did this because Russia failed to pay them for the water, but let's be real, it's more likely that they were doing it as retribution for them swiping up Crimea.
It'd be petty, because Russia just came in and swiped Crimea from them. Swiper with the swiper, no swiping. That's what they're doing to all of the other regions too. And then dude.
This put Russia in a position where it was costing them 3 billion rubles, or approximately 33 million US dollars, in taxpayer money every year to prop up Crimea. It was an untenable situation, and every solution that Russia tried to implement failed. A process known as soil salination started to happen there, which meant that the entire farmland area in Crimea was undergoing desertification. In October 2020, Russia spent the equivalent of 100 million US dollars on building a desalination plant to prevent the land from being ruined. And you can of course debate how justified Ukraine was in damming up the river, but I think it's important to point out that from Russia's perspective, they had two options here: give up Crimea or invade Ukraine and take back control of the water. After the invasion, the first thing the Russian military did on February 25th was to destroy the concrete dam in Kherson region. This is why holding on to the city of Kherson is so important for Russia. On today, Wednesday, April 6th, the Ukrainian General of Staff reported that the Russian assault towards Kyiv has had some limited success. This is a strategically important shipbuilding city for the country. The Ukrainians need to hold on, resisting Russia in order to prevent them from reaching Odessa and completing their goal of controlling the entire Black Sea. Russian sources posted this video from the region where they say that they've captured a large amount of weapons and ammo from Ukraine. According to them, the city has a population of 12,000 people and is now fully under Russian armed forces control. But we know how quickly the situation on the ground can change. Part of the reason it's changing so fast is because another high-tech Western weapon recently reached Ukraine. It's being deployed on the Eastern Front at the end of March. It's called the Starstreak, which has been overshadowed by the Javelin and the NLAW, but it has some features that make it more effective than the Javelin in some ways. This is a shoulder-fired anti-air missile that locks onto the enemy aircraft by using lasers instead of infrared. It's the fastest flying missile of its type. The foot-long dart flies out towards the enemy, and it uses a matrix of lasers that guides it to the target. Each submunition dart travels at 4,500 kilometers per hour or 2,800 miles per hour. Since it doesn't use heat-seeking, the Starstreak is immune to most countermeasures deployed by modern fighter jets. The Ukrainians have already shot down several aircraft with it in the east.
Last week I told you about the Battle of Kryvyi that's happening here. They're trying to capture the key steel-making industry of Ukraine. This Ukrainian officer here gave us a rundown on how they repelled the Russian forces there. Is it just me, or is this guy the Ukrainian knife guy? I like him.
Russia has their eyes on two other strategically important locations in the east: the natural gas fields and Mariupol. The Yevkatsky gas field, which is located in the Donbas region, discovered in 2010, it's probably just a coincidence that that's around the same time that both Russia and the United States suddenly took a renewed interest in Ukraine. Just like how in murder mysteries the husband is always guilty, the same is true for military invasions. Oil is always guilty. But to be fair, oil is the most valuable thing on the planet. There are worse things to fight over. Oil is what powers our life-saving machines, hospitals, cars that drive us to see friends and family. It powers the mining of the earth so that you can have your fancy new iPhone. The fact that most war in history is fought over valuable resources like oil has always blown people's mind, bothered them, and seemed greedy. But
that's why I want you guys, if you can, someone asked, I recommend you guys get the game called Civilization. We don't need the music anymore. Let's do a viewer check-in real fast too. We're watching Russia regrouping in Ukraine is worse than you think on YouTube. Comment what you're tuning in from, what city, what state, where in the world you guys are watching from. This is Mercado Media. I'm Andrew Mercado. This is independent news, crowd-funded viewer funded, viewer sponsored. I don't have any sponsors or anything like that. It's just you guys. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our supporters. Facebook's offering a bonus for anybody that wants to become a supporter this month. Your support is worth 4 months worth if you become a new supporter. So shout out to our supporters on Facebook. We got, yeah. So anyways, I highly recommend you guys, if you play video games. If you don't play video games, then I might just stream it someday. It's called Civilization, and you might have a bunch of resources in your country. And you're like, damn, and you get it all nice and built up. You can build a farm. You can build an ore, an iron ore. You can get your oil fields good to go, and then bam, all of a sudden an enemy country or a country will invade you to try to take your resources or destroy them. It's just part of the meta of life. Philly's tuned in. Miami, Florida, Michigan. Welcome. St. Louis, Missouri. How you doing? Tampa, Florida. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome. Mendota Heights, Minnesota. Alberta, Canada is tuned in. Owensboro, Kentucky, somewhere between Beaverton and downtown Portlandia. Anoka, Minnesota, you are great. Thank you. Albany, Minnesota. Anoka. Margaret, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Lawnville, North Carolina. All right. Let's hop back into it. Again, this video is Russia regrouping in Ukraine is worse than you think from Task and Purpose, the YouTube channel.
Friends and family. It powers the mining of the earth so that you can have your fancy new iPhone. The fact that most war in history is fought over valuable resources like oil has always blown people's mind, bothered them, and seemed greedy. But it never came as a surprise to me. Oil is what makes the world function. It's what powers our agriculture that feeds us. That seems more logical to fight over. Defending oil security is more logical than, say, fighting about disagreeing over what God you believe in, or disagreeing about what form of government should rule, which are the normal reasons that for some reason when people hear them, they always nod and say, I get it, well.
It looks like they couldn't avoid war.
I looked through some Shell press releases about the location of the natural gas field, and it appears to be situated right around the city of Kramatorsk. So far, the Russian invasion has made it within 40 kilometers, or 25 miles from the city, in the north and about the same distance in the east.
And this is the region that Rob from Speak the Truth said that Russia is going to want to try to take to finish taking this region. So what do they have there? They have a very important resource there.
Of the natural gas field, and it appears
they have a natural gas field in there. Right in here. There's a natural gas field in here. Rob from Speak the Truth said that that's going to be the next move, or he believes that that's going to be the next move Russia takes, is going to try to take this region in here. Natural gas field.
Situated right around the city of Kramatorsk. So far, the Russian invasion has made it within 40 kilometers, or 25 miles from the city, in the north and about the same distance in the east. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the Russian forces are converging on this city and the location where the oil field is. Russia appears to be redeploying what's left of their entire army on this region. If they're able to control the natural gas fields, they will be able to call this some kind of win. It's exactly what they did in Georgia, where they invaded and they kept control of the land where the pipeline was that threatened their energy dominance. That's what Russia's goal is here. So when they say that the main goal and the main war effort is in the Donbass region, it's true. But they are lying by saying that Kiev was never a part of achieving that goal. In order to take control of this area, Russia needs to capture a town called Icbm. This is a location of one of the most important battles that will contribute towards determining the outcome of the war in the east. So far, over the past month, the control of the city has changed hands a number of times. The Ukrainian forces have destroyed the bridges there and have—
Here's Icbm on the map. Very crucial town. You guys can see it has gone back and forth. Icbm has been under Ukraine control, or has been under it's just been white space, which is Ukraine's because it's their country. I shouldn't say Ukraine control. Ukraine's just not in Russia in control, but now Icbm's full on red.
have since focused on trying to destroy Russia's attempts to build pontoon bridges to cross into the south of the city. On March 20th, engineer troops tried to create a pontoon bridge over the Donets River so that they could bypass a bridge that was destroyed by the Ukrainian forces. These Russian soldiers were ambushed, and nearly the whole platoon was KIA. Their second attempt at putting up 2 pontoon bridges was more successful, and they were able to begin to encircle Icbm. This is another key strategic city that is separated by a river, which makes it difficult for an invading force. On March 25th, the US Department of Defense confirmed the Russian forces had broken through the Ukrainian lines of defense and reached the south of the city. According to a report by The Guardian about the Battle of Icbm, they said that the Russian soldiers had lists of individuals that they wanted to hunt down, which included people who owned guns, wealthy people, and others that they decided were dangerous people, like business owners. Sounds like your typical Russian Soviet purge. If it's true that the Russians are in control of the city, they are now in a position to link up with their comrades in Mariupol and completely encircle the Donbas region. At the key city of Mariupol, there comes bad news for the Ukrainians. There are a few interesting developments that we need to look at here. On March 28th, the mayor, Vladimir Putin, said in a televised interview, "We are in the hands of the occupiers today." According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russian troops captured the Security Service of Ukraine. It's a building in central Mariupol on April 2nd. The SBU is kind of like the CIA or the MI5 in the US and UK. A pro-Russian news source released this video of them firing their MLRS weapons at the city while claiming that they do not target civilians or residential areas. It's interesting to see the Russian military claims that they aren't attacking civilians, just like they're not retreating from Kiev, they're just repositioning. I'm guessing the same...
Literally, it's just like... I don't understand that concept of life yet. I'm not understanding that at all. We're not doing this as they're actively doing it, and then there's no accountability. There's the world powers or the world organizations that are supposed to keep this in check aren't even doing that. So it's like they're getting away with it.
Video editor that...
We're not attacking in this video. This video from North Korea that we saw a few days ago. Or actually, no, a few days ago. Dang, that was about a week ago we saw this. That was when I was streaming last.
I'm guessing the same video editor that edited the North Korean Kim Jong-un missile video also edited this one, Russia, North Korea. If you're looking for a video editor, I'm free. I don't accept rubles, but I can accept positions of power. Yesterday, Russians released footage of 300 Ukrainian Marines surrendering. The people and the army in the area are running out of food and water, forcing them to give up. Russia's using a tactic that they found useful in Syria, where they direct fire their artillery vehicles at a 90-degree angle straight into buildings where the Ukrainians are. There are 2 remaining pockets of Ukrainian resistance still fighting in the city. If Mariupol falls and is fully taken over by Russia, it would mean that they have control, the Russians have control of 80% of the Ukrainian Black Sea coastline, which would start to isolate them from the rest of the world and destroy their economy. As I research and track this war, I'm constantly changing my information based on what's happening on the ground, constantly learning and updating my understanding of what's happening. It looks to me like Ukraine has won round 1. They scored a huge victory in the region of Kiev, but they're going to be unable to properly celebrate just yet, as they now have to focus on regrouping and routing weapons to the east of the country in order to stop the Russians in round 2.
Yep. So this was just posted by Rob, like right now while we were live. Does he have one before this? It was 3 hours ago, I should say. Damn, I just got the notification now, though. You see, that's YouTube notifications. I was just notified now about it. Look at 3 minutes ago. You guys can see it. That's how terrible algorithms are. This was he posted this 3 hours ago, but I was just notified 3 minutes ago. So. All right, so here's the latest from Rob. Might as well just get his next because he does the same analytical breakdown of the movements. He's a U.S. Army sniper. We've been tuned into Rob. He's been in our chat, actually. Rob Turkla. He's been in our live chat, been supporting our feed, so he knows what he's talking about. We've been tuned into his content since about day 2, I believe. So here we go.
How are you guys doing? And welcome over to the channel. If you guys are new
make sure you guys go and like and subscribe to these videos as well.
yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on these videos we post every single day. So we're going to start out by looking at the map. I listened to you guys in the comment section. You said you wanted a more large scale map so you can see where we're going. So here you go. Now this is the northeastern side of the country. Here is Kiev right here. Here's the main supply route that they were on for the last month. There's no Russian held territory up there as of right now. So over here, now look, we go into Kharkiv. There's a lot going on. We'll talk about it here in a second. But I want you guys to take note. This black line you see right here is going to be the Russian supply routes leading out of Kupiansk, which I did not annotate, which I'm going to right now. I'm going to spend some time later on today in really like dress up this map and make it look a lot cleaner. I did not have enough time today to do that, but it will work for this video. I have changed a lot of stuff right here. We'll talk about that later on. If you're new to the channel, red, Russia, blue, Ukraine, I update this map daily, so it is up to date as of this video. So right now, around 5,000 Russian war crimes are currently being investigated in Ukraine. It's kind of a big deal. Ukraine's Air Force has also stated that they've shot down 8 Russian cruise missiles in the last 24 hours. They've also stated that in an attempt to avoid Ukraine aerial defense zones, Russian forces have instead been launching missiles from Belarus. The Japanese government has also now stated that they will allow the U.S. to deploy medium-range guided missiles inside of Japan. Japan is working on a counter-strike capabilities in case China decides to invade Taiwan. Chinese Communist Party has also said in a screened video that was out last year that they threatened a nuclear strike if Japan intervenes in the war with Taiwan. So Japan's got themselves in a little bit of a hot water mess, I guess you'd say, on that side of the world. They're having to deal with Japan, or excuse me, with Russia on the Kuril Islands, and now Taiwan, of course, and the Chinese Communist Party is wanting to kind of go after them if they try to intervene there. So the United States Air Force has now also announced a new ICBM. They actually tested this ICBM without letting anybody really know. They didn't make it public. They did test this thing, and it's apparently supposed to be the latest and greatest nuclear deterrence. Sounds more to me like a second Cold War in a brand new arms race, because we never really actually made these things public. They come out with all new stuff all the time, but they're like, you know what? We're going to launch the fact that, hey, we just made this new ICBM. And this is also kind of crazy. Russia has also started to begin using mobile crematoriums in Mariupol to burn bodies of deceased Ukrainians in mass. So the mayor of Mariupol has also stated that the scale of the tragedy inside the city of Mariupol is the world has not seen since the times of the Nazi concentration camps. He also said that they turned the entire city into a death camp. We know what they've been doing to Mariupol since the very beginning of the invasion. It's, what are we, roughly about 40-ish days. So I'm going to say about 35, 33, 34 days so far has been constant shelling of Mariupol and literally just turning it into dust. So this next one's actually kind of funny. We talked about this maybe about 3 weeks ago. Ukraine put out that if a Russian defects and brings a helicopter, they would pay him and whatnot. I didn't think it was really going to happen. So one Russian attack helicopter has apparently left its squadron, which was arriving from Russia to Belarus, to go off and ship to Ukraine. It actually switched off its navigation and pushed south into Ukraine, and the Ukrainian military has released an audio recording of the communication between air traffic control and the Russian helicopter. You guys did not know, Ukraine is currently offering $500,000, yes, $500,000 to the Russians who actually bring and defect and come over to Ukraine. So there you go. It looks like one Russian helicopter crew is now a bit richer, and they didn't have to steal anybody's iPads and or laptops out of their houses. The United States has now sanctioned Russia's largest state-owned bank and has now banned all Americans from investing in Russia. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know any wise American that would be investing in any type of Russian entity at this point. That wouldn't be smart. So here's the final news piece before we move on. The United States has now determined they have identified the Russian units that were responsible for the Bucha massacre. 104th and 234th Airborne Regiments of the 76th Airborne Air Assault Division. That is actually quite a bit of a mouthful there. 64th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade, 331st, and 56th Guard Airborne Regiments. So they have named off quite a bit of units there. And I don't really know exactly. I do know, I think it was Anonymous has actually announced and actually put out every single, I think it was 120,000 Russian soldiers' identities all over the internet. I'm pretty sure, I think it was 120,000 of them. That's
damn. Let me check that quick. Anonymous. Trying to find anything about that. We need journalists and researchers shifting They're doing a lot. That's the Russian ambassador. We'll look into that more.
Pretty significant. So we should see what comes of this. All right, so moving on. So these images you're going to be seeing are coming out of the Hostomel airport. And I told you guys yesterday that we would see a lot more video and proof of what kind of actual losses the Russians had sustained. And it's pretty significant. A lot of the equipment, I mean, talk about the hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment and men's lives that have been lost inside of this area. See all those photos? We're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars. That's crazy. Anyway, so here's a video coming out of that as well.
It was a few days ago, Jim.
And if you're also wondering what the suburbs of Kiev look like, don't worry, I have some footage for you. So here is that.
Where did he say this was?
Like, don't worry, I have some footage for you. And if you're also wondering what the suburbs of Kiev look like, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry, I have some footage for you. So here is that. And before we leave this region and move elsewhere, I'd like to share with you, this to me is asinine. This is crazy. I don't know why they would do this. This is nuts. The Chernobyl zone, you know, the area you're not really supposed to do a lot of stuff in, they dug trenches there.
Literally.
Yes. Anyway, if you want to see the drone footage of the Russian trenches that they for some reason thought was necessary, I could not imagine. Oh my God. I don't know. Anyway, here's that.
Look at that's where they had trenches. That right there, it showed you where that's the Chernobyl reactor. That's their reactor 4 or whatever it was. Right there. That's how close it was. That's how close they are. That's the reactor.
That's literally some spicy sand. All right, we're going to move over here to the eastern side. So the situation itself inside of Kharkiv hasn't changed a ton over the last 2 days. As you guys can see on the map, there is an element of Ukrainian forces that are pushing over towards Durachi, and they have been for the last 3 days or so. And there's another one that's trying to take back this main road system, as you see right there. They are still in heavy contact and conflicts right now, currently. But anyway, I'll let you guys know. The Russian focus that has been inside of the Sumy region has actually been redeployed over to Belgorod, which is just north. So there it is. We know this is one of the main supply routes they take in to bring in supplies. They actually shift their men up and back down. So all the men that were actually inside of the Sumy region, all over Kiev, all of that northern side of Ukraine have actually now been dispersed and actually being placed inside of these areas. And the men that were in Sumy are now going to be pushing through Kharkiv. And the fighting along the Donetsk River has really just intensified over the last few days. We know the Russians are starting to launch attacks on the southwest side of Izium now. They've pushed through, and they're preparing for a possible advance to Sloviansk. So we're going to move out of Kharkiv, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, Kupiansk is going to be the logistical hub for this side of the country. There's a railway that actually moves through there. It has been damaged, and it's been damaged for about 2 weeks, but it's now been fixed. So now they actually have free flow of access of getting troops and equipment through railway in from Russia into Kupiansk. Now, out of Kupiansk, and the reason why I wanted to annotate the actual roadway so you guys can see the little spidey veins that are coming off right here, those are going to be the main routes that the Russians are going to utilize to get the logistics and the supplies and their men all the way down into these areas they're trying to push through. So look at these as kind of the same thing we saw up in the northeast side of the country. So the fighting along the Donetsk River continues as Russia launches attacks on the southwest side of Izium. So we can see down here, they're actually staging and preparing for a possible attack on Sloviansk, which we do know this. So there's 3 elements right now that are currently moving all the way down, and there's a significant amount of Russian troops inside of this area currently. And I'm just going to draw a big X right here. This area right here, there's a significant amount of Russians staging in here, waiting for the possible advance into Sloviansk. Now, I do believe that this is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 days, dependent solely on the fact if the Russians can actually get enough supplies in there. I will say the Russians have learned a lot, and I say this knowing they're not pushing through and spreading themselves super thin right now. I thought by now they've been trying to take back these cities. I said this about 3 days ago. I thought they'd come back just trying to take these little tiny cities here and then, but now I've noticed that they're actually staging men literally all along this line right here for a possible advance down south. Now, I know this is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen over the next 48 hours, next 2 to 3 days. I do think we're going to see that.
So he thinks it, and so does, what's the name of his channel? Task and Purpose.
That's what Russia's goal is here. So when they say that the main goal bridge over the Donets River so that they could bypass a bridge that was destroyed by the Ukrainian forces, these Russian soldiers were ambushed, and hear them, they always nod kilometers or nod and say, I get it. Well,
it looks like they couldn't avoid war.
I looked through some Shell press releases about the location of the natural gas field, and it appears to be situated right around the city of Kramatorsk.
Kramatorsk. That's in here. Significant region. That's in here. So Rob thinks in the next 48 hours, based upon their staging, which we are seeing videos, that's the Z vehicles that are in those convoys outside of Kharkiv that we've seen. The Z convoys coming out outside of Kharkiv. Again, this is to the east of the country.
Days ago. I thought they'd come back just trying to take these little tiny cities here and then, but now I've noticed that they're actually staging men literally all along this line right here for a possible advance down south. Now, I know this is going to happen, and I think it's going to happen over the next 48 hours, next 2 to 3 days. I do think we're going to see that. The bulk of the 1st Guards tank army has actually been redeployed from the Sumy area into Kharkiv and in the areas of Izium. So that's one of those areas I've seen on that main front line. All right, so this one's coming out of Rubizan. So there is that right there. It's just northwest of Severodonetsk. As you guys do know, this one's been heavily contested over the last week or two. So the former mayor has actually been identified as helping the Russians find pro-Ukrainian activists. Now, this is not a good thing, clearly. He's also been sharing information about residents of pro-Ukrainian positions. So he's just going around literally telling the Russians, this guy is not on your side. And I don't know exactly what they're doing. Are they putting him into those filtration camps? Who knows what they're doing with these civilians? This is a terrible thing. And hopefully, by the end of this conflict, this guy is held accountable for the actions he's doing right now. So the 95th Air Assault Brigade has set up a successful ambush inside of this area as well on a Russian tank convoy. And here's the aftermath of that video. Okay, so as you guys do look at these little Spidey arms, so these ones I'm talking about, these transportation routes, the logistical routes that are coming out of Kupiansk, I think that this is actually going to be a prolonged war. I think it's going to take them quite a bit of time, not only to stage these men, to actually get them pushed through. If you guys do look in this northeast pocket, this one right here, which I'm going to go ahead and put this big X, this area right here, this is a pretty significant area. There's a lot of troops on the Ukrainian side who are built up their heavily fortified defenses over the last 8 years, just in this one area. I know that there are multiple outlets that are saying that this could be a prolonged war. I did read one that it was a retired U.S. Army general who was talking about that he could see this thing going like 2 more years.
I don't disagree. 2 more years. What's in 2 years? What's in 2 years? I could see it too. I could see this. Listen, this is what I'm foreseeing for us, especially at this channel, because we've been covering this war since day one. I foresee that this going to become like a 1 day a week update eventually. This is gonna go for a while. Like, this war isn't gonna end. They have sanctions. I don't know. They're already in full scale war of attrition. I mean, in 2 years you got the U.S. presidential election. We got midterms this year. We'll see how they influence, but they need to influence the United States more. They're already starting to sway lots of people in terms of Russia is. Russia's swaying lots of people already now. So, you know, that's what I foresee. I foresee that this turning into like a 1 day a week update, because this is going to be going for a while. We're going to have plenty of news to cover. There's going to be midterm elections and all types of stuff going on this year. But I don't, this is going to go for a while yet. We've been saying it since the day 1 or 2.
It could take Russia 2 more years to take Ukraine. He doesn't think they're going to stop on the eastern side of the country, and neither do I. I think they just learned a lot from their initial invasion of this. Yes, we all know they lost Kyiv and all this. I think they're now going to do what I thought they should have done from the very beginning: stage all their men, all their troops on this side of the country, and then push north from there. Now, they went in the way that they went the first time just due to the fact they thought they could take the entire country in 2 weeks and all this kind of stuff. And they learned that they met stiff resistance. Now, once they take this area, Mariupol is one of the areas we're going to see some of those men if this ever gets taken, and then they're just going to push up and link up with this group and then push forward. Not a lot of people are talking about how many troops they believe have actually moved out of Kiev from the Ukrainian side and actually pushed east to try to actually help and reinforce the men inside of Kharkiv and or this side of the country. I have no idea, nor do I even know how they're going to get that many troops over there. I don't really know. I don't think it'd be very safe for them to fly them over there. So I have no idea. So this side of the country is pretty important. So I'm going to go ahead and move down to Mariupol. No major changes actually happened other than the fact that Russian forces have captured the building of the regional SBU, which is downtown, which you can see inside of this video. Now, I will say there's been heavy shelling on the entire eastern front on the Ukrainian side. So every single one of these areas, it's been shelled. I mean, they have been just shelling them over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, really religiously. I think they're just trying to find an area that they're able to actually push through and break through the line. All right, so we're going to slide over to Mykolaiv. There's been a lot going down in Kherson and Mykolaiv itself. So Kherson, I actually kind of somewhat feel like I could see the Russian military pulling back past Kherson, regrouping, just due to the fact that I don't think they have enough men amassed here to actually hold it off. Because right now, the Ukrainian forces have been pushing down. They've actually liberated a couple towns up here over the last 12 hours. They liberated these 2 towns up here in the northeast side, and there's currently a firefight and a big tick, I should say, going on in the town of, this should be fun for me to say, Snihervika. So currently right there, the Ukrainian forces have actually been pushed back because the other day they were down here in Oleksandrivka. They've been pushed all the way back, and the Russian forces have been on the offensive on this side of the country, which is somewhat surprising to me. But I do believe Mykolaiv is a pretty key area, and they do want to push north after this. But I will say, I do see that I could see them possibly pushing back to the backside of Kherson and maintaining that position, that defensive position, until they can actually amass more troops and then push through. Anyway, we'll know over the next couple of days what actually happens on the northeast side, because I think that's going to be pretty important. There's going to be a ton of stuff. And when it comes to these mobile crematoriums, I bet you a lot's going to come out. I mean, the only reason why they would ever want to utilize those things is to hide the stuff they've actually committed, like the crimes they committed. They've actually done some terrible things. That would give them a reason to actually want to utilize these. So we should see. Hopefully it's not the case. I do love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will have another video for you guys here in, well, tomorrow. Like always, I'm out.
All right, that's some Rob. Speak the truth. The latest, so keeping an eye on this region here. He believes in the next 48 hours, the Russian military is going to be trying to make a push on this region. They have Ukraine has important natural resources in here, or important resources in here. Hello from Saskatchewan, Canada. How you doing, Saskatchewan? Comment anything you can into our Discord server that you would like me to pull up. I wonder if Task and Purpose has any other videos.
How's it going?
Watch. No, it was 2 days ago. How NATO's machine gun fits there. That's 7 days ago. That's old information now. John. We can look at John. We watched John. He hasn't posted a new one yet. Glad you're back at it, Andrew. Thanks for keeping us updated, and congrats on the new apartment. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you, thank you. Don't have anything new from John yet today, but this is the latest from yesterday morning.
42 of Vladimir Putin's war. The electricity is still on. The internet is still on. There are no Russian tanks on my street or anything like it. And I'm still wearing my lucky orange hat. Life is getting back to normal. Still, there are some fiddly things. I've just been to buy some eggs, and there are no egg boxes and not enough. So what you've got to do is buy the eggs and then wrap them with cling film. And there was me and a queue of nice old ladies, and we're all waiting for this process to happen. And you can imagine why. It's because the egg box factory is somewhere being blasted to bits somewhere. And at the same time, you look at this city, you look at this street, Krashasik, and you think, what happened? It's some kind of nightmare. But the nightmare's for real, and in Bucha I saw it with my own eyes. And there's an issue about pictures, which lots of good people back home in London, around the world, are going, oh, please don't show those pictures. And I kind of get it, I understand it. But at the same time, I saw a man who had been executed, a bullet to his forehead, during the Russian army occupation. I also saw another man that had been shot in the back of the head. Now these are war crimes against civilians. Multiple incidents of this. But I think there is a problem with comfortable people in comfortable places in the West not truly understanding the depth, the intensity of the agony here. And so I think it's necessary for people to realize the reality, the truth of war, to see some of these pictures. I know it's difficult, but it's so much worse for poor people there. Hey, love from Kiev.
So here he's addressing why he's sharing some of the graphic pictures that he has been on his Twitter account.
Kiev Diary.
Let's go to my personal profile. "7 minutes ago, a Russian Su-25 attack aircraft reportedly flying over Pervyomask. Where's this? Never heard of this town. Luhansk or Mykolaiv? Unsure if it's in Luhansk or Mykolaiv. Pervyomask. Likely here though. 7:44 in the morning in Kyiv. Okay, my bad. I didn't know there was gonna be Su-25 attack aircraft. Details in the story from Bucha by Max Barak and Lilov Luck. We already looked at, we saw Bucha. DNR fighters with a BMP-1 and naval infantrymen with a BTR-82A in Mariupol. Our Discord server is in the description of the video. Join our Discord server. We have an awesome Discord community. Thank you to our Discord community. New appeal from Zelensky. If we don't get the arms we need, Russia will interpret it as permission to go on attack, as permission for a new bloody wave in the Donbass.
Наші захисники і захисниці. Схоже, в світі нарешті всерйоз змінюється ставлення до сучасної російської держави. Після того, що світ побачив в Бучі, коли російські війська звідти вийшли, тепер ставлення до усіх в Росії буде простим. Або підтримуєш пошук миру, або підтримуєш нічим не виправдані масові вбивства. Убитые украинцы и украинки в Буче, в Ирпене, в других городах, в которые заходили российские войска, это последний аргумент. Последний аргумент для каждого гражданина России, чтобы определиться, в конце концов, за войну вы или за мир. Если за войну, то вы навсегда, до конца жизни будете изгоями и в конце концов потеряете все. А если за мир, если у вас есть хотя бы немного стыда за то, что делают российские войска в Украине, то для таких граждан России сейчас ключевой момент. Нужно требовать, именно требовать прекращения войны. Лучше сейчас, требуя мира, что-то потерять, как-то столкнуться с российской репрессивной машиной, чем если вас до конца жизни будут приравнивать к нацистам. Это касается не только любых публичных персон в Российской Федерации, не только бизнесменов, но и обычных граждан. У нацизма нет будущего, у массовых убийств нет будущего. У всех в России, кто сейчас не будет требовать прекращения этой позорной войны и вывода российских войск из Украины, нет будущего. Схоже, що в російському керівництві справді злякались того, що гнів світу через побачене в Бучі повториться і через побачене в інших містах.
Okay. And it's an excerpt from it. New appeal from Zelensky. Ukrainian investigative journalists say that Russia has moved part of its aviation from Belarus to Bryansk on the northeastern edge border with Ukraine, in line with a large change in military posture to the eastern flank. Here's video we saw a little earlier in the stream. Video of Ukrainian Stugna ATGM team targeting Russian vehicles. Part of the footage was previously released.
Там дві коробочки, подивися.
Як ти ставишся до ідеї бать беху?
Ніяк.
Галя балувана.
ППО, бляха-муха, пальне, танки, Буратіни. А це мотлах, нахуй він нам срався. Буратіна! Внимание к бою!
Буратіно йде. Хлопці, сокотіться від труби.
Вистріл! Кто трогает, сука? Пи***сы, блядь!
Замена ракеты.
Ну ты, сука!
Не кричи. Нова ракета есть, походу.
Yes! Юра, забрали, братан!
So that's from the Stugna peace strike on a convoy. A video posted online on Monday and verified by the Times appears to show Ukrainian soldiers killing captured Russian troops outside a village west of Kyiv. We'll thread some of the findings here. Information isn't coming out as fast as it was. A captured, damaged Russian TOS-1 Alpha thermobaric MLRS BM-1 launcher with music. So that's a thermal. It's got the thermobaric weapon on it. Ukraine locals from Ukrainian Territorial Defense Forces of Zaporizhia Oblast towed a previously downed and abandoned Russian BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicle. In the background, you can see what was used to retrieve it.
Вот это вот мы вытащили БМП третье, которое утопили петухи в речке. Им не жалко такую технику, а мы все же жалко нам ее. Мы ее вытащили, вот эти товарищи. Еще есть один кандидат в мастера спорта по плаванию. Только для этого и надо учиться плавать, чтобы такую технику вытягивать. Все, но все, что внутри было, все будет применено опять против петухов. Помашите ручкой людям.
Слава Украине!
Героям слава! Пошла съемка. Вот это вот мы вытащили БМП третье, которое утопили петухи в речке. Им не жалко такую технику, а мы все же жалко нам ее. Мы ее вытащили, вот эти товарищи. Еще есть один кандидат в мастера спорта по плаванию. Только для этого и надо учиться плавать, чтобы такую технику вытягивать. Все, но все, что внутри было, все будет применено опять против петухов. Помашите ручкой людям.
Слава Украине!
Героям!
So we got Ukrainian locals from the Ukrainian Territorial Defense Forces. And grab the tank with a John Deere. This is Borodyanka reporting from James Longman from ABC News. Then Borodyanka. The Kyiv Oblast. To the northwest of Kyiv.
Of Bucha, and somehow we've made it to the town of Borodyanka, which is northwest of Bucha, and somehow I didn't know it was possible, but the devastation is even worse. I mean, look at that. That's an apartment building, just sort of chopped in half. The mayor says when this invasion began, Russia actually sent its jets over this town, that they bombed it from the sky, knowing full well that there were civilians here. And the great fear is that as Ukraine retakes more and more land on the way up towards the Russian border, that they'll discover more atrocities, possibly even worse than the ones we've already seen, because Russians were here for that much longer. The other thing about this town is that all you really hear is the sound of crows. There are very few people, because there's nothing for them to come back to. There's nothing really for people to have survived here. We've made it to the town of Borodyanka. This is north.
Borodyanka. 2 damaged Russian T-72B tanks captured by Ukraine's 95th Air Assault Brigade. We got captured Russian Tornado G MLRS multiple launch rocket system.
Вот такие дела.
It's loud.
Було ваше, стало нас. А град то повний.
У нас тепер був 1 град, буде 3.
От такі діла. Було ваше, стало нас. А град то повний.
У нас тепер був 1 град, буде 3.
От такі діла.
All right. Damaged Russian Tunguska air defense system. Video reportedly showing the Javelin launch. Showing a Javelin launch from one of these ground troops here. Video showing... Is there any more? Oh, here we go. Ukrainian Javelin ATGM strike on a Russian vehicle. Okay, so you're going to have 2 videos. All right. Then here's video reportedly showing the Javelin launch from the ground.
Доброго дня, з вами група Джавелін. Ми в повному составі. Десь хлопці ще працюють. Ми займаємося по уничтоженню самим злосним врагом, сепарськими танками. Оператор наш Андрій, гроза сепарських танків.
Можна протолити.
Що можу розказати? Та нічого не можна розказувати. Просто виїжджаємо, уничтожаємо техніку, яка лізе на наші землі. Уничтожаємо загарбника, який покарає на саме все те, що в нас є, на нашу Україну, на наші сім'ї, на мирних людей. І як у нас кажуть, то наша робота.
Побачив, зафіксував, знищив. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
And then here's the... So it's spliced together. One more time.
Єбаний танк шевелиться. Веди його.
Доброго дня, з вами група Джевелін. Ми в повному составі. Десь хлопці ще працюють. Ми займаємося по уничтоженню самим злосним врагом, сепарськими танками. Оператор наш Андрій. Гроза сепарських танків. Що можу розказати? Та нічого не можна розказувати. Просто виїжджаємо, уничтожаємо техніку, яка лізе на наші землі. Уничтожаємо загарбника, який покарає на саме святе, що в нас є, на нашу Україну, на наші сім'ї, на мирних людей. І як у нас кажуть, то наша робота.
Побачив, зафіксував, знищив. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
All right. Video allegedly of a Russian OZM anti-personnel mine in a building in Bucha. Oh. Skirt. Don't want to be near that. Ukraine free gas, or also known as an abandoned Russian 9T-452 transporter loader from the Uragan multiple rocket launcher. Free gas.
Заправляємося.
One more time.
Заправляємося.
You saw that, the ATGM team. Talking about the Azov battalion. They've been fighting for 8 years. That's not related to Ukraine. Added lumber armor. So here's the wood armor that they've been using, which has 0 effectiveness, by the way. Wood armor attachments. Again, a captured Russian Tornado G MLRS.
Було ваше, стало нас. А град то повний.
У нас тепер був 1 град, буде 3.
Отакі діла. Було ваше, стало нас. А град то повний.
У нас тепер був 1 град, буде 3.
Here's Stop Promising, Start Acting rally was held in Berlin. It would have been yesterday. More than 5,000 people urged German government to impose full embargo on Russian gas, oil, and coal. People lay down on the ground to remind about Russian massacres of Ukrainians. They did a massive die-in in Berlin. In about 15 minutes, they're going to have the doorstep by the Secretary General and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. About 15 minutes from now. Let's take a moment and do a viewer check-in. Comment where you're tuning in from, what city and what state, where in the world. Welcome to Mercado Media. I'm independent news, independent both frontline and sitting here and reacting to news. I did a press conference today we went to for the no charges being filed against the officer involved in the shooting death of Amir Locke in Minneapolis. So I do local news in Minnesota as best I can because this is where I live. I live in the state of Minnesota, so I cover Twin Cities local news. But most of the time as of late, I've been hanging out with you guys covering the Ukraine war from home. We got St. Paul, Minnesota tuned in, Pennsylvania, and I apologize. I've been absent for the last week or so. If you guys have been wondering where the hell I've been moving into my apartment. I got a 2-bedroom apartment all to myself. I got a stream room. I got my own bedroom. The living room out there is just full of boxes. So I don't have a couch or anything. This is the only chair I have in this apartment, actually. I don't have anywhere to sit still. Spokane, Washington's tuned in. How you doing? Springfield, Illinois, Wisconsin, Buffalo, New Mexico, Long Beach, California, Maryland is tuned in. So we're going to likely see the beginning of the NATO conference. I'm not going to stream that. We'll have to watch it after the fact at 9 a.m. You got to wait a little bit, Logan, to talk in the Discord. It's just a security measure. So you have to join the server, then you wait 15 minutes. I think it's actually 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, you're able to chat. Milwaukee, Wisconsin is tuned in. Welcome, welcome. Good job. Thank you. Sydney, Australia is tuned in. All right. So the other thing, too, if you guys want to just read our description, this is the latest in general. Ukraine Emergency Ministry says that search and recovery efforts began in the many destroyed apartment buildings in the Borodyanka and the Kyiv region. So in the Borodyanka, Kyiv region, there's been recovery efforts, and that's we saw reporting of that from what's his name, James Longman from ABC. Yep, James Longman from ABC.
Borodyanka, this is northwest of Bucha, and somehow I didn't know it was possible, but the devastation is even worse. I mean, look at that. That's an apartment building, just sort of chopped in half. The mayor says when this invasion began, Russia actually sent its jets over this town, that they bombed it from the sky, knowing full well that there were civilians here. And the great fear is that as Ukraine retakes more and more land on the way up towards the Russian border, that they'll discover more atrocities, possibly even worse than the ones we've already seen, because Russians were here for that much longer. The other thing about this town is that all you really hear is the sound of crows. There are very few people, because there's nothing for them to come back to. There's nothing really for people to have survived here.
All right, so that's out of Borodyanka. U.S. sanctions Russia's largest state-owned bank, Sberbank, bans Americans from investing in Russia. Sanctioned individuals include Vladimir Putin's adult daughters, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's wife and daughter, and Russia's Security Council members. Authorities in the eastern Ukrainian region of Luhansk urged civilians to evacuate, quote, while it's safe, warning that the Russian bombardments could cut off escape routes. India condemned the killings of civilians in Bucha and called for an independent investigation, having earlier declined to explicitly criticize the invasion of Ukraine by its longtime partner in Russia. Pope Francis condemns the massacre of Bucha, calls UN impotent. At his audience, the Pope called the cruelties against civilians in Ukraine horrendous. He added that the world is witnessing, quote, the impotence of the international organizations of the United Nations. Here's Pope Francis holding up the flag from Bucha, Ukrainian flag. The Pope slammed international organizations for being unable to stop Russia's attack in Ukraine. So we got, you are a blessing to us. I know good things are coming your way. Thank you so much for that, Margaret, with the big super chat. Thank you so much. Super chats help so much, y'all. Because we don't get ad revenue, no monetization, none of that. None of that. Have to turn it off. So those that are sending stars and super chats, y'all are the real ones for real. Pope Francis slammed international organizations for being unable to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine and called for an end of the war while holding a Ukrainian flag Wednesday. In the current war in Ukraine, we're witnessing the impotence of international organizations, he said in front of a weekly audience at the Vatican, according to CBS News. The Pope pointed to international organizations that were put in place following World War II to install a, quote, new era of peace. He said, quote, unfortunately, the old story of competition between the greater powers went on, end quote. Pope Francis also denounced the attacks in Bucha while kissing the Ukrainian flag, which he brought to him from the ruins of the town. Recent news from the war in Ukraine, instead of bringing relief and hope, brought new atrocities, such as the massacre of Bucha, he said, according to CBS News. He continued, they are victims whose innocent blood cries out up to heaven and implores, stop this war, let the weapons fall silent, stop sowing death and destruction. He then invited the group of Ukrainian children who are now refugees in Italy up to the stage. These children had to flee and come to a strange land. This is one of the fruits of war, he said. Let's not forget them. Let's not forget the Ukrainian people. The Pope has yet to visit Ukraine since the war began on February 24th, but said on April 2nd that the visit to the Eastern European country is on the table. So that's from the Pope. Zelensky, the president, Russia blocks humanitarian corridors to Mariupol to hide the real picture. The Russian army and the political leadership, all those who gave orders, carried them out, are all war criminals. Everyone must be held accountable, said President Vladimir Zelensky. Almost 4,900 people evacuated from the war zone on April 6th. 3,686 people arrived in the Zaporizhzhia from occupied Mariupol and Borodyanka. Additionally, over 1,200 people were evacuated from 4 cities in Luhansk Oblast. UK plans to send armored vehicles to Ukraine, including protected patrol vehicles such as the Mastiff or vehicles like the Jackal, which can be used for a recon. British troops will be able to send to a country neighboring Ukraine to carry out training, according to the Times. So we got also a member from Free Zone, a member notification. Thank you for everything you do. Always enjoy watching your streams. Congratulations on the new place. Thank you, Free Zone. Yes, I have the Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, all that. Thank you guys for doing that. Just we have the bot that'll comment the link for you guys. The bot will comment it. Thank you, Tina. Just look in the chat and you'll see the links, the donation numbers, the donation usernames. U.S. believes it can identify Russian units that committed war crimes in Bucha. According to a U.S. official, identifying those involved is an extremely high priority for the U.S. intelligence community. That's from a CNN report. It is already clear that more than one military unit or group of Russian troops are responsible for the massacres, but it is uncertain whether the U.S. would announce its findings publicly, and the decision to do so could be left up to Ukraine. Thank you, Richard, for that. Thank you for the super sticker. Thank you so much. So that can be found in the description of the video. You can, for your reading pleasure. Lincoln, Nebraska, how you doing? We got Corpus Christi, Texas tuned in. It's good to see you. Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you so much, Ralph Mouth. Thank you, Ralph. So right now we're just waiting for the doorstep by the Secretary General and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine at NATO. There's a NATO conference today. You guys, when I sign out, you can find this feed on NATO's website. Oh, there's video now. They're just arriving. Let's refresh here. We're in here in 6 minutes. I suppose we can have this up on the screen, huh? NATO. Likely more thoughts and prayers or what? This is a live feed now. You can find this on NATO's website. That's where you have to find these to tune in. Early morning for NATO leaders. early morning. It's, what is it, 7? Almost, it's 8:15 in Kyiv. It's 7:15 in the morning right now. In NATO land. Thank you, AZZ. Thank you for that. How long is the stream? Just until the end of the Ukrainian conference here, however long they're going to talk. They're going to talk for 10 minutes. So at 12:30, 12:45 we'll be ending the stream. We're waiting. I'm supposed to start talking in about 4 minutes. The doorstep by the Secretary General and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. It's a windy day. Coach Brian, thank you. Are there 2 Russian flags up there? No, Russia is not a part of NATO. Remember, NATO, I get it. I didn't even understand the differences. That's how ignorant a lot of our corners are of society and what we don't understand. But NATO and United Nations are not the same. Russia is a part of the United Nations. They're in the United Nations Security Council, but they're not a part of NATO. So yesterday we saw United Nations with the Russian foreign minister sitting there talking. You will not see that here because, again, Russia is not a part of this. Man, they're pretty right on time, aren't they? Car arriving, what is it? 12:17, 3 minutes prior. Like the video if you guys haven't. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and following the page. I'm not quite sure what is going to happen or what's going to be said. This is the live feed from NATO. It's like a very windy, rainy day there. Good morning from Croatia. Good morning. Oh, it's all good, Natalie. No, it's all good, Natalie. I didn't know it either when the shit started. Andrew, is YouTube on? Yes, YouTube's been on. Yep. Every time you see a Facebook stream on for this coverage, you'll see YouTube as well. Let's check the feed while we're waiting. We're just waiting for the doorstep by the Secretary General and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to begin. Right, we'll get this on the screen then right now. What do you guys think that's going to come out of this at all? Anything? More nothing. So reading some comments coming through. More BS, outrage. Probably nothing will come of it, as always, but hopefully something. More empty hope. Meeting of NATO Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Here's their media program. Is this the 7? No. Video transcript. So, meeting of the North Atlantic Council and Foreign Ministers session with the participation of partners. Australia, Finland, Georgia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, New Zealand, Sweden, and Ukraine, as well as the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and the Security Policy / Vice President of the EU have been invited to attend. All right, here we go. Just waiting to hear. Yeah, he does. This is a live feed now, so it's not a video clip. God dang, it's loud. Refresh the wind. Doesn't really give details on here. Doesn't really give exact details on there. Feed's having problems now. Feed's having issues. There we go. So the Secretary General, there he is. Ukrainian delegation, Kubala. Oh, good news, they're inside now. This is a live feed. Hey, James.
Mr. Kuleba, Dimitro, welcome to NATO. It's always a great pleasure to welcome you here. And let me start by expressing how much we admire your courage.
Like the video if you guys have it. Share the stream.
You personally, but also the government of Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, and of course the bravery and the courage of Ukrainian armed forces. What you do every day standing up against the Russian aggression is something that inspires the whole world. And as you know, NATO allies have provided support for Ukraine for many years, trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian troops, and now allies are providing equipment, support to you to uphold your right for self-defense, a right which is enshrined in the UN Charter. And it is an urgent need to further support Ukraine. And at our meeting later on with the NATO foreign ministers, I'm certain that we will address the need for more air defense systems, anti-tank weapons, lighter but also heavier weapons, and many different types of support to Ukraine. NATO also has responsibility to, of course, protect and defend all allies. So we have, since the invasion of Ukraine, stepped our military presence in the eastern part of the alliance. And we are making sure that there is no room for misunderstanding, miscalculation in Moscow about our readiness to protect and defend all allies. You being here provides us with a very good opportunity to sit down with you, to listen to your assessment, your analysis, and together discuss the way forward, how we can further support Ukraine. So, dear Dimitro, please welcome. It's good to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you, Jens, for welcoming me. I came to Brussels to participate in the NATO ministerial and to hold bilateral meetings with allies. My agenda is very simple. It has only 3 items on it. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons. We are confident that the best way to help Ukraine now is to provide it with all necessary to contain Putin and to defeat Russian army in Ukraine, in the territory of Ukraine, so that the war does not spill over further. In the recent weeks, Ukrainian army and the entire Ukrainian nation has demonstrated that we know how to fight, we know how to win, but without sustainable and sufficient supplies of all weapons requested by Ukraine, these wins will be accompanied with enormous sacrifices. The more weapons we get, and the sooner they arrive in Ukraine, the more human lives will be saved, the more cities and villages will not be destructed, and there will be no more Buchas. This is my message to the allies. It's very simple. And I call on all allies to put aside their hesitations, their reluctance, to provide Ukraine with everything it needs. Because, as weird as it may sound, but today weapons serve the purpose of peace. Thank you.
Secretary General, are you ready, or are allies ready to send more offensive weapons to Ukraine? And one question to the minister, do you think that Germany is doing enough?
Allies are sending many different types of weapons, and I think also we need to realize that allies have supported Ukraine for many years, and these weapons, the support we have provided, is proving its importance on the battleground every day. We can see all the Russian armor that has been destroyed. We have seen Russian planes being shot down. And of course, this is first and foremost because of the bravery, the commitment and the courage of the Ukrainian armed forces. But the equipment that has been supplied is, of course, also of vital importance. I have urged allies to provide further support of many different types of systems, both light weapons but also heavier weapons. It is, as Foreign Minister Kuleba states, Ukraine needs weapons to defend its own country. And this is actually defensive, self-defense, also, of course, with advanced weapon systems. So I expect this to be one important issue at the meeting today.
When it comes to Ukraine, there should be no such difference as between defensive weapons and offensive weapons. Because every weapon used in the territory of Ukraine by the Ukrainian army against a foreign aggressor is defensive by definition. So this distinction between defensive and offensive doesn't make any sense when it comes to the situation in my country. And those countries who are saying we will provide Ukraine with defensive weapons, but we are not in a position to provide them with offensive weapons, they are hypocritical. This is simply unfair, unjustified approach. Germany, as you perfectly know, has made a revolutionary step in changing its position from not agreeing to supply any weapons at all to allowing certain supplies and providing Ukraine in particular with anti-tank weapons. However, it's clear that Germany can do more given its reserves and capacity, and we are working with the German government on providing us with additional weapons. The issue that concerns me the most is the length of procedures and decision-making in Berlin, because while Berlin has time, Kyiv doesn't.
Thanks, Neil.
Minister, what do you think about the most recent sanctions proposals?
Well, I hope they will be applied in full. This is definitely a step forward. A week ago, the sanctions proposals were much weaker, to say the least. We were very unhappy about it. We were working with partners in G7 and in the European Union to ensure that sanction pressure is stepped up. We succeeded, but I cannot say that we succeeded 100%. We will continue to insist on full oil and gas embargo for Russia, on de-swifting all Russian banks, on making sure that all ports are closed for Russian vessels and Russian goods with the minimal number of exemptions from it based on humanitarian grounds. And frankly speaking, I hope we will never face a situation again when, to step up the sanctions pressure, we need atrocities like at Bucha to be revealed and to impress and to shock other partners to the extent that they sit down and say, okay, fine, we will introduce new sanctions. I don't believe that Ukrainians have to pay with their lives, health and sufferings for the political will of partners to impose sanctions.
Philip Loke from Norwegian Broadcasting. Minister, what kind of weapons exactly do you need? Is it planes, long-ranging missiles? What exactly are you asking for?
Planes, shore-to-vessel missiles, personnel armored vehicles, heavy air defense systems.
Pretty specific.
Foreign Minister, if I could ask you, Nick Beach from the BBC. You say weapons, weapons, weapons are your priorities today. For you, on a personal note, how difficult will it be when some of the NATO allies tell you that they can't give you some weapons because they don't want to plunge the West into a wider war with Russia? And just a word on the support Britain is giving your country. And Secretary General, can you just remind us what has changed in the last few days in light of the horrors we've seen? And do you think partners in NATO, their minds will be changed today from what you hear from the Minister?
Yes, there are two ways of approaching the issue of weapons supplies. The first one is when you do not want to supply anything. You come up with the argument, we don't have to do it because it will pull us or NATO as a whole into the war. The second approach is completely different. This line of thinking is completely different. We will provide Ukraine with all necessary weapons so that neither we nor NATO as a whole will have to fight in this war, because Ukrainians will do it for us. I think the deal that Ukraine is offering is fair.
Damn.
You give us weapons, we sacrifice our lives, and the war is contained in Ukraine. This is it.
He's not fucking around.
The United Kingdom has been at the forefront of providing Ukraine with all necessary assistance, and we deeply appreciate that help.
Yo, he's being pretty direct.
I think fundamentally what we have seen over the last days is the brutality of this war, and that has just highlighted the importance of support to Ukraine. And therefore I think it is important that we have Minister Kuleba here today to meet all NATO allies and to discuss how we can further support Ukraine. NATO allies are providing many different types of weapons, also heavier systems, advanced systems, and also systems that can shoot down planes and of course attack Russian armor. And it is exactly as Minister Kuleba said, that Ukraine is fighting in a defensive war. So this distinction between offensive and defensive weapons doesn't actually have any real meaning in a defensive war as Ukraine is fighting. What we also have seen is, of course, that we need both the support with weapons, but also to step up sanctions, and therefore I also welcome the fact that NATO allies are now in the process of stepping up further sanctions on Russia. NATO provides support to Ukraine, but NATO is not sending troops to be on the ground. And we also have a responsibility to prevent this conflict from escalating beyond Ukraine and become even more deadly, even more dangerous and destructive. So we are providing support, but at the same time working hard to prevent escalation of the conflict.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Dang, he's not playing around. Very direct. This is the exact weapon systems we needed. That was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Kubela, and the Secretary General. So you got NATO. You got almost the Secretary General stuttering there for a second. No, that's it for now. There's more later, but I'm going to be tuning out for now. I'll be going over the recap or anything that happened at the 9 a.m. stream. But if you're up later, if you're going to be up for a couple hours, in 2 hours from now, the opening remarks by the NATO Security General and the Foreign Minister session with partners will begin. So at 9:30, you can tune in, and if you're interested. But all right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It has been a pleasure. That is the end of the road for us for tonight. We'll be live again at 9 a.m. Central Time, or around 9 a.m. Just pay attention to the stream. We'll have it scheduled. So head on over to the YouTube channel here so you guys can find the video. Shout out to all of our supporters, all of our members. Thank you to everybody that subscribes to the channel, that follows the page. Thank you so much for engaging in the content. Consider supporting the platforms through the donation links and all that. Viewer funded, viewer supported stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful night. Take care.